Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate, heading back down to the SEC as the Missouri Tigers head on the road to play the Georgia Bulldogs. And I'll say this, you keep trying to find ways to knock this Missouri team and to find ways that they might not be a legit team in the SEC. And I'll tell you this, after watching almost every single Missouri game this year, there's not many holes in this team, and that's why we were so high on them heading into the year. Now, they are going on the road to play the back-to-back national champs, and what you saw against Florida last night or yesterday afternoon, they look like the back-to-back national champs once again. Really excited for this game, and Dill, similar to what we said last week, two of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. Carson Beck absolutely tearing it up. Brady Cook as well. This is going to be a fun one. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support for all of these game breakdowns has been just amazing. We love taking deep dives into these teams, and the amount of support y'all show, it's absolutely amazing. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, let us know picks, predictions, keys to the game in the comment section. Best part about doing this, chopping it up with you guys in the comment section. Dill, going to kick this one to you, give you the T-box. Missouri heading on the road to play the Georgia Bulldogs. How are we feeling here?
Yeah, this will probably be Georgia, or not probably. This is Georgia's biggest test today, because like what you said, I mean, you keep looking.
So.
Everybody's looking for reasons why Missouri isn't right up there with that kind of top 10 range in the country. I mean, they're there. They play good defense. Their offensive line has made leaps and bounds strides since Eli Drinkwitz was criticizing them, saying we're not going to have a starting five play this way for the rest of the year. And he hasn't. In fairness, they've gotten it rolling. They can run. They can pass block. They're playing really well, and you obviously see the skill on the outside.
That's for me the storyline of Missouri. Like Luther, when you have a game, like just Georgia fans know this, they got Brock Bowers. Like when you have a game changer as a pass catcher, it makes an offense so much easier to run. Luther Burden providing so much juice to this Missouri Tigers team. We'll get to Missouri's offense, but I want to start with this Georgia offense going up against the Missouri defense that I really like this secondary, but they'll. So many questions surrounding who's going to be Georgia's starting quarterback heading into the year. Can they win another national title? Carson Beck has been one of the best quarterbacks, not only in the SEC, but in the country. You take a look at this Georgia offense. And as much as everyone wants to say we haven't seen peak Georgia yet, they've been getting off to sleepy starts. 39.4 points per game, number 8 in the country. 7 yards per play, that's number 6 in the country. They are 57% on third down. That's number 1 in the country, and 83% on fourth down. So they're scoring points, they're moving the ball, performing well on money downs. And I think a large reason for that is Carson Beck continuing to look more comfortable as the quarterback 1 for Georgia. And as he continues to progress in this Georgia team, you're seeing him just keeps getting dangerous.
And that's what you've seen, because honestly, there have been stretches this year where Georgia really hasn't run the ball incredibly well. And that kind of changed against Florida. That looked like the old Georgia line. They were playing physical. They were moving guys off the ball, getting big chunk plays in the run. But when they haven't been, Carson Beck's been right there to answer the call. And obviously, the big question was who's going to replace Brock Bowers. I feel like people are sleeping on the fact that Ladd McConkey really wasn't playing consistently through the first part of the year due to injury. Having him back is massive. I mean, again, another guy people I don't think want to recognize as one of the best wide receivers in the country, but he very obviously is. And when they
100%.
need a play, he'll go make it for him.
I'm such an idiot. I remember sitting here 7 days ago, probably about this same time, putting so much. And I'm not undervaluing Brock Bowers. He's the best tight end we've seen in college football in a very, very long time. And I was sitting here saying, this Georgia offense is very reliant on Brock Bowers. I'm interested to see how they perform without him. And it's like I'm like, I know they recruit tight ends. I know they develop tight ends like anyone in the country. Oscar Delp looks absolutely awesome. Ladd McConkey, Dominic Lovett, they were just fine without Brock Bowers. And for Georgia fans, that makes you even feel better about the Georgia Bulldogs because you're letting some other guys step up and kind of gain some confidence. So when Brock Bowers is back, you got a multitude of weapons for Carson Beck to go to. But the story after rewatching that Florida-Georgia game this morning, though, that offense line's back. Like, it kind of sleptwalked through the first half, and it wasn't bad. I thought this Georgia offensive line was going to be the best in the country. Last night, against a pretty solid Florida front seven, they look like the best unit in the country.
Yeah, and that's even without Amarius Mims, who I think Kirby Smart said is right there. He'll probably be back for this week. And you're right. They had that physicality that I don't think we'd seen yet, where they were running guys off the ball. And that guard center combo led by Cedric Van Pran just playing
so good.
They need to play that way. If they're going to be like that, like Death Star kind of squad where it's just like, oh, well, we're just chalk it up. They're going to win the national title. That's how their offensive line needs to play. That makes them so tough, especially given what we just talked about, what Carson Beck's doing with this passing attack. That's a really hard team to deal with if they can.
A Florida team that was really good at getting after the passer, has some really good guys. Principal U, 0 sacks, 1 pressure all game. Like absolutely dominant performance by that Georgia offensive line. Now, Missouri on defense, I actually kind of like this front seven, like Darius Robinson, Johnny Walker, Niles Gaddy. They can get after it. They send their backers on blitzes. Tyron Hopper, still one of the best blitzing linebackers. You're going to see a lot of good blitzing linebackers. Like Dumas Johnson on the other side. Like they can get after it in the pass rush. But where I think this Missouri defense is really special is in the secondary. Like Chris Abrams-Drain playing like one of the best cornerbacks in the country. Rackesru hopefully healthy. Joseph Charleston and Dalen Carnell in the back end. Like they turn the ball over. They're very sticky. They make it very hard. Like when you watch that secondary, even against LSU, when Jaden Daniels kind of got after him, like it's not always easy. You have to be really good to beat this Missouri secondary. And I think this will be Carson Beck's biggest test against the Missouri secondary that I really do think plays some football.
He's kept the ball out of harm's way, but you're right. We probably haven't seen him play a team that likes to get their hands on balls the way Missouri does. And you watch that Kentucky game there. They're jumping routes. They're catching it when they get their chances to take the ball away. That's that makes you a dangerous defense. Like Oklahoma wins that game if their defensive backs catch interceptions and make the plays they need to make. Missouri's doing that right now, and when you can do that consistently as they've done, that's really tough. And the only obviously game that they struggled was LSU, but LSU is going to make everyone struggle. I don't think there's a defense in this world that can stop that offense, but every other game you've seen Missouri's been really tough in the secondary.
They turn the ball over, and you say, like, hey, there's a reason some of these guys play defensive back because they can't catch. 2 of these recruits in Missouri's back end were recruited as wide receivers. They can catch when that football is in the air.
And the only thing for me for Missouri is that I think the linebackers need to play as good as they've played this.
100%.
From the one part of this defense that, again, I've been a little underwhelmed with in terms of how they play the run. I felt like their defensive line will create some havoc and not – I think they're kept relatively clean for the most part. I don't think they're making enough plays at the line of scrimmage. I think there's too many runs that are going for 5 yards. They're kind of middle of the pack statistically in their rushing defense. Against the Georgia team, I think you need to come up. You need to fly up. Tyron Hopper needs to kind of play like – we've seen him play some incredible football. He's got to play like that with his hair on fire, coming up, making stops at the line, behind the line. That's the type of thing they'll need to do to beat Georgia. And I don't think we've seen it a ton yet, but I think they got the potential.
They have the capability of doing it. Like Tyron Hopper can play like one of the best linebackers. I picked him to my All-American team in the offseason. Like that's how good I think Tyron Hopper can be. Flipping sides, Missouri on offense, and I need to just like every time I talk Missouri football, I gotta raise my hand and just apologize to Brady Cook. Like Jake Garcia coming in, Sam Horn. I was like, I think Brady Cook's a solid SEC quarterback. I don't think he's great. Brady Cook giving me the double birds. Like he is just playing out of his mind. You take a look at Missouri's offense, 33.7 points per game, number 26.5 yards per play. That's 16th in the country. Brady Cook has taken that step. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's extremely accurate, pushing the ball downfield. Luther Burden has been the guy for this Missouri team. Now, we all know Luther Burden's really good. 900 plus yards on the year. Like he's one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the SEC right now. But no, people got to start talking about Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper too. If you want to consistently give Luther Burden that Marvin Harrison Jr. treatment, like they got some other wide receivers who can hurt you. And I'm really excited to see what Georgia can do to slow this Missouri offense down.
Yeah, and that'll be the top. Like again, another unit that has 3 guys. I think the one thing for Georgia you're looking is how they deal with the Missouri players out of the slot, and that's where they like to line up Luther Burden, and he really picks teams apart from that position. You saw what he did against LSU and some of these other defenses they played. But I do think for Georgia, Tyke Smith, I don't think I've seen him play that good in probably his whole career. I thought that game, what he was doing was incredible. He was making a lot of tackles. Another key to stopping Missouri, you need to be able to tackle their wide receivers, especially Luther Burden, who is incredibly hard to tackle. I was very encouraged by what I saw from Tyke Smith, especially as they head into this matchup where you got 3 wide receivers who all are a handful.
It's like you stole the note. I have Tyke Smith versus Luther Burden right in my notepad. Like that is what I'm most in. Tyke Smith's a guy back in heading into that 2021 year. I was so excited for him coming over from West Virginia, All-American, and struggled with injuries. Got lost in just a loaded Georgia secondary, emerging as that dude at kind of that slot corner, that nickel role. That's going to be such a fun matchup because Tyke Smith is probably going to see a lot of Luther Burden. Now, that's a nice transition to this Georgia defense. That, again, that first drive against Florida, you're like, oh, this ain't the Georgia. Like, you've kind of questioned, like, is this the dominant Georgia defense that we've seen? And Florida moved the ball on them, went up and put 7 immediately. After that drive, Florida got nothing going until garbage time. Like, you're starting to see this Georgia team, as they always do, like find their form towards the back half of the season. I think that defense has absolutely done so.
Yeah, and I think what was encouraging is they were getting after the pass rusher with 4. I thought Jalen Walker was able to make a couple plays. Their defensive tackles were rushing the passer well. I thought Chris Miller was playing really, really good. I don't know that we've seen a ton of him, but that was a very dominant game for him on the inside. That's what you need to see. I think you need to start seeing their defensive linemen make more plays because that was, again, you mentioned it a ton of times on this show before. Kirby Smart came in and said, look, we don't have that alpha dog, that Nolan Smith, that Jalen Water or
Jalen Carter. But the thing what I'm thinking is like everyone's, they don't have the top 10 NFL draft pick this year, the Jordan Davis, the Nolan Smith, the Jalen Carter. And then people think that means the Georgia defensive line's bad. It's not bad. They got a bunch of guys who are going to be playing in the NFL. Are they necessarily the game wreckers we saw Jalen Carter? Probably not, but they're still a very good group, and you saw them dominate that Florida offensive line. But Dill, we said this heading into the season, the strength of this Georgia team is not in their front 7. Although the front 7 is one of the best in the country, this secondary is, I think, what makes this Georgia team so dominant. You look at the numbers. 5.4 yards per pass. That's number 4 in the country. Like, they don't let anything behind them. They come up and tackle. This is a Missouri team that kind of not what prays on the deep ball, but wants to hit the deep ball. Georgia doesn't give that up. They got really good safeties. They got really good cornerbacks. They're loaded at every single spot in that secondary. That matchup is going to be massive. And you mentioned it, Tyke Smith versus Luther Burden. If Tyke Smith can slow Luther Burden down, that's a good recipe for them.
And frankly, I think they're going to need to because, I think Georgia's defensive line played really, really well against Florida. I think Missouri's offensive line is considerably better. I think they'll be able to be a little bit more balanced. So I do think this secondary is going to need to play really nails football.
Sticky, yeah.
I don't think this front 7, maybe in the way you've seen in the past, will just eat Missouri alive. And that's not a knock on Georgia as much as that's saying Missouri's brought this unit along. I mean, this unit's playing good enough football to be competitive in a game like Georgia. And I don't think we've seen that enough from Missouri in the past, perhaps. But right now, I think you feel pretty good about it. And that probably does put the onus on the Georgia secondary to deal with the number 1 attack that Missouri has, and that's through the air. And that's not, they run the ball okay for sure.
Nobody runs it on Georgia. Sorry to like that. Georgia is 3rd least in the country in rush attempts faced. For the people only run the ball 40% of the time, and they just don't even try. Like, it's like we know that we're running into a brick wall. We ain't gonna just bash our heads into a brick wall. So Missouri is gonna try to beat them through the air. Really interesting matchup. Dill, we'll get to the pick here. Missouri heading on the road. 17.5 points is from what I've seen the opening line. Where are you rocking?
I think that's crazy disrespectful to Missouri. And I think Georgia probably wins this game, but man, I think Missouri can make enough plays to keep it. 17's a big point spread in my mind. I think Missouri's a really, really good football team. I was looking for this morning again. I was kind of watching some of their games back and doing exactly what you did, trying to figure out why Missouri isn't great. And I was like, well, their defensive line actually looks really pretty good. Secondary's obviously great. Offensive line's really good. And Schrader's a solid running back. I don't see what the problem is with this Missouri team, why they should be giving up as many points as Kentucky, I think, was given up to Georgia. I think Missouri is a considerably better team than Kentucky. I think they can play this Georgia team much tougher.
You're taking Missouri. The Missouri fans know, like, there's no bigger Missouri fan than me. Like, I was so high on this team coming in. We've taken them a lot during the year. If we get the version of Georgia that we saw last week, like yesterday, it's a problem. I'm going to take Georgia to cover the 17.5 points at home. It's going to be rocking. And it's no disrespect to the Missouri Tigers. I will say, if Georgia sleepwalks like they have earlier in the year, like, Missouri can clip them 100%. But what we've seen from Georgia the last couple of weeks, they ain't sleepwalking. The alarm clock has run up. And I think the Georgia Bulldogs are turning into the back-to-back national champs. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs to cover the 17.5 at home. Going to be a phenomenal game. Very excited for this one. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys rocking with us, and we'll talk to y'all later.